Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the legislative chambers, and there is also an automatic external defibrillator that is available on the back wall of the legislative chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning we are going to open up with the Douglas County Board of Commissioners and do our recognition and proclamations first. So with that, could I please have the roll call?
Commissioner Boyle is absent. Commissioner Kavanaugh is absent. Commissioner Duda. Here. Commissioner Kraft. Here. Commissioner Morgan. Here. Commissioner Rogers. Here. Madam Chair.
Here. The first recognition is of the following county employee retiring. Sakon Cross Pakazir, and here, and retiring from the Douglas County Health Center after 15 years. And there she is. I didn't see her sitting in front of you. So if you could read the resolution for us.
Thank you, Commissioner. Carol Donnelly, Human Resources. Whereas Douglas County, Nebraska recognizes that its employees are the county's most important asset and resource for providing quality service to the citizens of Douglas County. Whereas the county wishes to recognize Sakon Cross Pakazir of the Douglas County Health Center on her retirement and dedicated service of 15 years to Douglas County, Nebraska. Now therefore be it resolved by the County Board of Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that the county recognizes Sakon Cross Pakazir for her dedicated service to the citizens of Douglas County, and therefore thankfully presents the resolution as testimony thereof, dated this 21st day of November, 2017.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if you would like to say a few words, you're more than welcome.
It had been enjoyment work for Douglas County Civil Service, and I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we wish you the best on your retirement.
Mary Powell, and I would just like to add that it has been a great pleasure working with Sakon all these years. Her residents and the staff absolutely love her. She's been a great asset to the health center, and we wish her well.
Okay. Thank you. Could we please, we've had a motion and a second, could we please vote, and then we'll have you come walk around and shake our hands, okay?
Commissioner Morgan. Motion passes, all present voting yes.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I just wanted to add my congratulations. Thank you for your years of service to us. What you do and what the folks at the Health Center do is some of the best that Douglas County does. And so we appreciate it, and we're proud of you, and thank you for your contribution to our community. Thanks very much.
If you want to come around, we'll... Those are happy tears.
Commissioner, would it be possible to get a picture?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a phone here if you want to use it. Oh, you have one? Okay.
Mary, welcome, Mary.
This is your day.
Matt, will you take one of mine?
Yes, ma'am.
With that, we have another recognition today, a resolution recognizing Mr. Terry Moore, longtime president of the Omaha Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO, for his commitment to union workers and improving the lives of the working families for more than 4 decades. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Kraft to read the resolution, please.
Excuse me. Whereas Mr. Terry Moore recently retired as president of the Omaha Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO, an Omaha-based labor organization committed to supporting union workers and working families. And whereas Mr. Moore has led the organization since 1976, walked the picket lines with workers on strike, fighting for workers' rights and bringing fairness and dignity to the workplace. And whereas Mr. Moore, an Omaha High School graduate, worked as a laborer in the meatpacking industry and as a machine operator for Kellogg Company before putting his passion into politics into action and running for president of AFL-CIO. And whereas Mr. Moore started Labor Day weekend parade and festival, Septemberfest, and worked with all the city's mayors to push for projects like the Jean Leahy Mall, Century Link Center, TD Ameritrade Park, and Buffett Cancer Center, among many others. And whereas Mr. Moore has been involved in charitable civic causes, serving as on the boards of Exarban Future Trust, the United Way of the Midlands, Salvation Army, Joslin Art Museum, and Metropolitan Entertainment and Convention Authority. And whereas Mr. Moore is retiring as president, he plans to stay at the Federation, heading a new nonprofit called Labor United, which will focus on charity work and trades education. And whereas Mr. Moore's passion for improving the lives of working families and ensuring a fair workplace for all has made a substantial impact on the community over the last 4 decades, and whereas Mr. Moore is the true meaning of a public servant, and his dedication to workers in Omaha and Douglas County will forever be known. Now therefore be it resolved that this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board hereby recognizes the remarkable contributions of Mr. Terry Moore during his career with the Omaha Federation of Labor, the AFL-CIO, and congratulates him on success. I would like to move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Morgan.
Well, I think the only error in there is 4 decades, because it's probably 5, because I know in the 70s you helped me become a state senator.
Right.
And we used to meet out at Coco's on 87th and Dodge.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for the sacrifices your family made in all that you've done. And I mean that as sincerely as anything I've ever said here at the board. I remember working with you in the recent years with the Salvation Army and the Kroc Center and getting those funds to work in South Omaha, and that great asset to our community for people. And I think the big thing about you, Terry, is you bring so many different groups of people together. It's not us against them. It's all of us working together to make it better. And I just wish you always the best and sincerely thank you for great service to this community. You're really a unique individual, and I'm appreciative that you've got someone with Mike that's going to, Senator McDonald, that's going to be following in your footsteps, and I'm not sure he'll be able to wear those big shoes, but you keep working with him on it, buddy.
I will. Thanks, PJ.
Commissioner Duda.
Terry, I want to wish you the best, but I just have to say, I mean, I'm not always a good Republican, but we're not always on the same page. But what I have always held great respect for is your global vision, your community vision. You recognize that what's good for the community is good for the workers. And so you've always gone far beyond just representing the workers, but to trying to improve the whole community for the benefit of everyone. You've left a great legacy, a great mark. You should be very proud of what you have done.
Thanks.
I'm truly impressed and respectful of what you have done. And
Thanks,
wish you
Claire.
the best.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, Terry, many people feel union is a bad word. If you say trades,
Be careful, Claire.
if you say trades, though, they understand. And you're going to be working for the trades. You've always worked for the trades. Union, non-union, you've worked for the people of Omaha, the city, the county, the state, and the region. There are so many things listed on this, the accolades, that we would have been here probably till noon just reading the resolution had we continued. I would like to make a commitment to work with you on your new endeavor of the
Labor United.
thank you, Labor United, and educating young people on the trades. Working with the Youth Center, the young people, Omaha Community College, and everywhere we can, so that young people can grow up knowing there's an opportunity for them, working with their hands, working with their education, earning a living wage, if not much better than a living wage, and contributing to society. So again, I personally have known you for decades, and I would like to thank you for all that you've done for our community.
Thank you, Mark.
Commissioner Rogers?
Terry, it's not more to add what everybody's said, but I wish you well in your retirement and your next endeavor. I would encourage you to get some rest, but I know that's not in your DNA. But I want to add on to Commissioner Kraft's point. I know Metro is going to be a big hub for that and that new building, so anything I can do in respect to this new endeavor and that trade effort, please let me know.
I'll take you up on it, Chris.
Yep.
Terry, I agree with everything that everybody has said here, but the one thing that I want to state is you've been a good friend. If there's anything about loyalty, you're it. You've been a friend for all the years that I've been on the county board and before that, especially with my husband, with the work you've done with him. So I appreciate that, not only all the stuff that you've done, but I appreciate your friendship, and I will cherish that. And I, too, will commit to you to continue to work with you for many years to come in whatever endeavors you may take on, as we know that will be many, not just this one.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
So thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say that obviously I'm honored and humbled to hear these words and accept this resolution. I'll make sure that you all are involved in Labor United, which I started 5 years ago as a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. In front of you is a packet that will explain to you what I'm about to say in a very short manner, is that in these 5 years, through in-kind services to people in the community, to residents, down to starting their furnaces in the winter, having the largest food drive in the state that fills all the pantries for 9 months. And it's all documented in front of you. Over the last 5 years, through in-kind services, it's over $26 million that's been given to this community and to help it grow. And we're going to continue to do that. We also have started educating now. We're about to sign 3 agreements. And I can't tell you right now because they're not signed yet. So, but you'll be impressed when you see the agreements we're going to have. We're going to have a full-time educator on board that's going to be working. Our goal for this is to start in the 8th grade and through high school and college. We've got a partnership with Metro Community College, and we're going to be working in that center to help expedite these young people, to motivate them into the crafts and trades to have a decent living. And so we need all the help we can get in that endeavor. And now I'd like to say one thing is that this is not something I came up with last night or a week ago or a month ago. 3 years ago, I decided this is what direction I want to go. And to do that, for my love for the Federation and its members, I had to find someone that I know could do a better job than me. And I recruited Mike McDonald, who was a very bright, energetic individual, state senator on the Appropriations Committee. I knew his father. I knew him as a young man. He'll do such a great job, and I'd appreciate it if all of you would work with him, show him the respect that he deserves. Mike, would you want to say anything?
Mike never refuses a
That's
microphone.
All the things that you've said earlier reflect what Terry's done in this community, not only as the president of the Omaha Federation of Labor, but prior to that. And I think when you have a situation where you're serving people, you're working with people that you respect on a mission that is going to help people, it's special. You feel the hand of God in that, and that's what Terry's done, and he's focused on that his whole life. It's always been about helping people, and I just want to tell Terry thank you. Thanks, brother.
And I would never, Terry, try to speak for Commissioner Boyle, but he sends his regrets not being able to be here today, okay? All right. Okay, thank you. And could everyone please vote?
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
There you go.
Mike,
thank
great
you
luck to you.
very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And as soon as we get Commissioner Boyle's signature, Mike, I'll get you the resolution, okay?
Thank you.
With that, could we have a motion to recess out of the Board of Commissioners and go into the Board of Equalization?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
The agenda for the Douglas County Board of Equalization, roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner is absent. Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Here, item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, November 7th, 2017. And item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, December 5th, 2017 as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Is there a motion to approve A and B?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kraft, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we do have 4 resolutions, items D through H. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Kraft, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Mike?
Mike Goodwillie, Douglas County Assessor, Register of Deeds Office. Actually, I should probably just get out of the way since we have a motion here. But one of the items, Resolution D, there may be somebody here who would like to speak to it. It is a late filed exemption application. They finally got around to filing it in October, after we sent our typical kickoff notice in November, a second letter in December, a third in March, and a fourth in June. And so yes, we think denial of the applications is appropriate. And in fact, I know I've said this before, and I think maybe sometimes you choose not to believe me, but it isn't just me saying it. I will give you, there is a case exactly on point from the state Supreme Court called Indian Hills Community Church versus County Board of Equalization of Lancaster County, in which the court said, and I will quote, "We hold that an integral part of the process to obtain a tax exemption is reapplication for such exemption. That is, a new application before a previously granted exemption has expired. failed to make reapplication for exemption or file a new application, results in a cessation of the tax exemption when the current exemption expires. Courts in other jurisdictions have reached the same conclusion in their construction of tax exemption statutes. So this isn't just me, it isn't just us being sticklers, this is the state Supreme Court. With that, I don't know if there's someone from the organization here that would like to speak. I spoke to somebody over the phone a few days ago and was under the impression that they were coming, and so I wanted to be sure they had the opportunity.
Is there anyone here from the Waterloo United Methodist Church? Good morning.
Good morning. Hello.
Hi.
My name's Lisa Polak. I'm treasurer, United Methodist Church in Waterloo, and it was me that you spoke to.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good. I
yeah.
just didn't want you to get cheated out of your chance if you came down here.
Yeah. As I told
Mike
Mike, I can't give you any excuses or reasons why it was not filed. We have a very small congregation. I'm the youngest person in the congregation, and all I can say is I've taken measures to ensure it won't happen in the future, and we've already filed for next year. So I would really appreciate your consideration in approving it for this last year. That's all I had to say.
The exemption was there in prior years,
In prior
correct?
years, sure.
It was, and for how long do you know?
I don't have a timeline in my head. I have looked back, and at least for a couple, 3 years, I went back and checked some previous years, but I don't know when they first started.
Okay.
We've filed every year for the last
For a long
15.
time. Okay.
I mean, since I've been treasurer.
Okay. Commissioner Rogers?
Yes, Madam Chair. I make a motion to separate item D out first.
Okay.
And take some.
I second.
All right. So with that, we do have a motion on the floor to approve the resolutions E, F, G, H minus D, or it's amended, right? Because we already had a, so does the makers of the previous motion agree to pull out D as a friend? Okay.
So, I mean, my motion is to approve item D.
Yeah, we'll do that after we do all the other resolutions.
You need from me?
You can stick around until they go.
Are you ready?
But it looks like they're going to
Do you think so?
So
So we're making a friendly amendment to the motion that we're going to approve the resolutions minus D.
gotcha. We do have that. All right.
Okay. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
So my motion is to approve item D.
Item D.
You need to be clear.
No, well, it says denial, so my motion is to approve.
Approve. Right.
I second that motion.
To grant the
Yeah,
approve it,
to approve.
not to deny.
Yes. Approve the exemption.
Okay.
With you, Chris.
Okay.
Give us one moment, please.
And adjourn.
Okay.
I like the adjournment.
Approved.
Was this church the only item in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's B, right, boy?
D as in dog.
They have two accounts, one for their real property, one for their personal.
Yeah.
All right.
Please vote. Oh, okay. Come on down, hon. Commissioner Kavanaugh, go ahead and, is it on D?
No?
Yeah, it's on D.
Okay.
The property address on this is 201 3rd Street, is that right? Waterloo?
I'm sorry, yeah, that's what we've got.
I don't question that, I just wondered what it was, because it had a P.O. box on the,
Yeah, that's the address they've always given us when they filed their applications.
and that's the address of the actual church? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay. Are you here to speak on item D?
Yes, ma'am, but the application for full permissive exemption.
That's E, we're granting it.
Oh, but for every church?
Well, for everybody on this list, yeah, are you on the list?
I wasn't on this list. I went to the assessor's office yesterday and.
Okay, can we,
Okay.
hang on one second.
Can-
Let's finish item D.
Let's finish these items.
Yes.
And it may be that, if I chat with this property owner, we may be able to get this resolved.
No, okay.
Thank
All right.
you, Mr. Goodwill.
Okay.
Sure, I understand.
All right, thank you.
Please vote.
So please vote.
There's an echo in there.
There is an echo in here.
Motion passes, all present voting yes. Oh, I apologize, I didn't see that. Get my glasses fixed here. Commissioner Duda voted no, all other commissioners present voting yes.
And then, Mike, do you want to just go and then
I
come back?
I
and let
think
us-
so. This
Okay.
may be something we can head off at.
Okay, thanks. We will move then to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Corrections. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle is absent. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Here. Commissioner Duda? Commissioner Kraft? Here. Commissioner Morgan? Here. Commissioner Rogers? Madam Chair.
Here. Item 1, approval of the minutes of the Board of Corrections meeting held Tuesday, October 10th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Kraft, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Corrections about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will go to the report from the Director of Corrections. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have before you the November 21st Board of Corrections report. Enclosure number 1, administrative services. We're in the into the fourth month of the budget or the fiscal year. We remain under budget. Enclosure number 2, community corrections. Final preparations were completed for the American Correctional Association accreditation audit, which was conducted at the Criminal Justice Center on 01 and 02 November. Community corrections passed the audit and is found to be in compliance with 100% of all of the mandatory and the non-mandatory standards. So congratulations to Community Corrections Manager Mike Myers and his staff over there for a job well done. Also, Chris Sweeney, our compliance manager. Preparations were made for the first annual Veterans Day recognition inside of the Veterans Housing Unit. That took place. Was well attended by providers that come in and out of those, come in and out of that housing unit on a frequent basis. That was the inaugural, as I said, that was the inaugural recognition day. A little bit more about Veterans Day recognition in a bit. Department of Corrections is researching and exploring options to expand and enhance our pretrial release program. We're taking a comprehensive look at all of the resources available to bring to bear on this changing dynamic of the criminal justice system. Over the coming months, we will work with local criminal justice stakeholders in order to implement improvements which will safely monitor more individuals in the community, and when appropriate, rather than in lengthy pretrial detention. And so I've spoken to you in the past. The pretrial numbers are something that has significantly driven our population in the last couple of years. So a really close look at this population is definitely in order. Also, a trauma course offered by the Women's Center for Advancement was added to the jail curriculum. Plans are in progress to add additional trauma resources to both jail and community corrections in the coming months. With regard to the 24/7 alcohol sobriety program, there were 39 new admissions last month, setting an all-time monthly high for the second consecutive month. And those new admissions, by the way, are being driven by the drug use monitoring component that Mike and his staff added a few months ago. Alcohol use monitoring, there were 2,470 breath tests completed last month. 11 were positive for alcohol use. There were 4 no-shows for testing. The overall compliance for breath testing was 99.4%. Just really very good considering we had 2,470 tests. Overall, 38 individuals were monitored for a total of 870 days of SCRAM monitoring. Those are individuals that were on the SCRAM bracelet in lieu of coming to the facility for a breath test. There's one no-show, one tampering violation on the scram bracelet, 4 alcohol violations. Overall scram compliance rate was 99.3%. So it's another good example of us taking advantage of the technology that's out there that we're also intend to deploy more use of as we move further down the road with our plans for the pretrial release program. The drug use monitoring program, a component of 24/7. There are 4 positive drug test violations, 1 positive drug patch violation, 1 drug patch tamper violations, 6 no-shows for drug testing. So that program has increases in numbers. We still have good compliance with that program as well. With regard to work release, those individuals donated 287 hours of community service to include a new partnership with Keep Omaha Beautiful. Work release admitted 35 individuals for the month. House arrest admitted 58 individuals, and those individuals performed 200 hours of community service last month. The Reentry Assistance Program, 27 individuals were admitted to RAP. 1 individual achieved a GED. In corrections in-house programs, there were 92 individuals admitted to corrections programs in the jail, and 1 individual achieved a GED. In pretrial services, 8 individuals were referred for priority prosecution, and 254 bed days were saved. 357 individuals were placed on pretrial release, and 1,082 individuals were managed on pretrial release with a 91% compliance rate. Before I leave community corrections, I will say that we're still progressing with the reentry specialist program, and we have identified, and Mike and his staff have identified 4 housing units that we're setting up as therapeutic communities. There will be more as we begin to progress with this initiative, but the reentry specialists that we hired several months ago that had previously been collecting data are now assigned to these 4 different housing units, one of which is the Veterans Housing Unit, and serving as in a case management function. We're really excited about the potential outcome of that particular endeavor, and we hope to expand that therapeutic community concept to other housing units within the main facility. And recall that we have 29 different housing units, and the success that we've had in the Veterans Housing Unit came as a result of co-locating like people. So if we can identify those cohorts of people within the jail and put them in one unit and then infuse the resources accordingly, I think that's a more effective and efficient way to go about programming inside the facility. So as we begin to evaluate that transition from data collection to case management, I will report on that in subsequent briefings with you. With regard to enclosure, any questions on that?
We'll just go through the whole thing,
Okay.
and then we'll go back for questions.
Okay, with regard to enclosure number 3, documentation collection for all 3 years of the audit cycle was completed for both the main jail facility and the Criminal Justice Center. The on-site accreditation, which I've spoken about, took place for both facilities during the last week of October. Our hearing in front of the American Correctional Association at their winter meeting will take place in January. The audit team is going to recommend to the committee that we be accredited for another 3 years at both the main jail facility and the Criminal Justice Center, which is no easy feat, is insofar as there's a lot of standards to meet, both mandatory and non-mandatory. And we met 100% of the mandatory standards at the main facility, and I believe about 98% of the non-mandatory standards in the main facility. Enclosure number 4. We started a new hire class on October 30th. That's new hire class 17-4. They will graduate December 1st. If you're available to attend that graduation, it's a small group, but it's a very good group. They will graduate on the 1st of December in our training room at 1 o'clock. We made promotions during this recent reporting period. Promoted to lieutenant was Alexandria Johnson. Promoted to correctional officer 2 was Christina Cole, Matthew Ritter, Brandon Shelton, Sarah Stevens, Sean Lundeen, Trey Fellner, Jonathan Morris. Also, I mentioned that the department recognized the most recent Veterans Day, and while this is an October reporting, I want to talk a little bit about what we did for Veterans Day on the staff side of the house. We were able to identify and all of our staff that were veterans of the armed forces, and we held a recognition ceremony in our training room, and had some speakers there, and it was a very good event. We had a full house. It was very well attended. The Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 8, was helpful in helping us to put this together. That was an inaugural event for us. We plan to do this every year, and it was a really good event. We handed out to the veteran service members who were there stars, and Officer Paul Schmidt has responsibility for our colors. When he decommissioned those flags, he had the stars removed from those flags and little borders sewn around the stars of the flags, and they put them on some stock card, and then we handed those out to our veteran service members in recognition for the service to the country. And it's a really a grassroots deal with Paul putting that together. I want to recognize Paul again and the FOP for being so helpful in that. But I think it really made that Veterans Day celebration special for the staff who were in attendance. But also, we had one of our veteran staff members come forward and talk a little bit about his service in the armed forces. And I'm going to ask Officer Gherkin to come down today. He was deployed during his service with the Department of Corrections, and he brought back a token of his service, and he wanted to give that to the Douglas County Department of Corrections. And I want, without speaking too much, as you know, I can talk a whole lot, but I want you to speak to what this flag and the history of it represents.
Sure.
Officer Gherkin?
Good morning. I'm Dan Gherkin with Corrections, as Director Foxall said. This time last year I was in northern Iraq, and I was working closely with the UAV guys who fly the drones over not just that country, but many of the other surrounding countries there. Anyway, they provided me and my one other coworker the opportunity to bring back some souvenirs, and kind of in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I was looking back at my employment back home, and I knew that not only had they retained my job, but they also retained my position, and in fact promoted me while I was gone. So I was just feeling very thankful about it. And so the UAV guys flew a flight with a flag on it for the Department of Corrections, and that's it.
Oh, wow.
And they printed off a certificate, and I'll read it to you. Operation Inherent Resolve, Al-Assad Air Base, Iraq. To all who read this, let it be known that this American flag was flown on a combat mission to an undisclosed location on the 5th day of November 2016 aboard an MQ-1 Bravo Predator, tail number 3156. This mission was flown in support of operations by American and coalition forces as we prosecute the war on terrorism. This flag is hereby dedicated to the Douglas County Department of Corrections for outstanding support to the nation and our brothers and sisters in arms.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. If you would like to know, there were also a couple of the drones who were shot down during the same time frame. So this was one of the lucky ones that made it back.
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing that with us this morning.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
we are very thankful to have Officer Gherkin in our employ as well as the other service members that are working for the Douglas County Department of Corrections. And we're very proud of what he and all of them have done. So I think special recognition for all of our veterans is in order for this month. Also, in the personnel section, I would like to have Officer Young step forward. We talk a lot about the stress of the job. We talk about mental health and the things that the staff encounter on a day-to-day basis, things that they see in admissions, and talk frequently about how difficult the job is and the things that they encounter. And Officer Young has initiated a wellness program and is going to talk a little bit about the wellness program that we've started at the Department of Corrections.
Good morning. Suck it up, Buttercup. It's just part of the job. Leave your work at work and your home at home. That's some of the famous words of wisdom that were passed on from the older generation of correctional officers to the newer generation of correctional officers. So I was thinking, what is part of the job? And so I looked at the posting that we have currently, and it's some of the things that they talk about is enforcing rules and regulations, governing the inmate conduct in a fair and consistent manner. And we do a really good job of that. Our training department does a really good job of that. Responding to emergencies, restraining and restricting the actions of combative or disruptive inmates, using the minimal amount of force necessary. We spend a lot of time training on our use of force and how to do that safely and swiftly. What we don't prepare for is a psychological toll that corrections and the job can do on us. What we're not shown how to do is to process or decompress all of the trauma that we see over the length of our career. We don't tell an officer that at some point he's going to be sitting at the dinner table with his wife and she's going to say, you know, you're not the same person that I married. The kids are scared of you. We don't tell them that you're going to be hyper vigilant every time you go to the grocery store, and they make an announcement for responders to report to the front of the store. So I want to share some things that, talking with other staff, that are also part of the job. 31 to 35% of correctional officers have diagnosable symptoms of PTSD. That's on par with combat veterans. The average lifespan of a correctional officer that does 20 years inside of a correctional facility is 59. The average public is 78. Correctional officers commit suicide at twice the rate of police officers and are at a 39% higher risk for committing suicide than all of the professions combined. Obesity, anxiety, depression, diabetes, and divorce are also just part of the job. So I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to attend a seminar for emotional survival for law enforcement officers, and the guy came in and talked to police officers and firefighters about how to kind of process these types of things. And it was good information, but it wasn't quite what we needed. Corrections work is a little different from police work. So I started looking, and I found this organization out of Florence, Colorado, Desert Waters Correctional Outreach. And I come across the term correctional fatigue, and it fit. And so what fatigue is, it's the cumulative negative changes to a correctional officer's personality, mental health, physical health, and functioning of the workplace culture. So the difference between corrections fatigue and, say, like PTSD is one traumatic event. Okay, what we endure is, over the course of a 20-year career, the constant unloading and loading of stressors. Okay, think of that Minnesota bridge in 2007 that collapsed. Okay, over time, small cracks began in the metal, and over time, it collapsed. That's what we do. Every day we're loaded and unloaded with stressors. We come back in and out of our war zone, and eventually we crack. It's brought on by having unhealthy organizational coping strategies, such as sleeping pills, alcohol, or just denial. At our place, we're so tough all the time that we don't want to admit that these things bother us, right? So we use the terminology that I spoke with earlier. There's no resources right now out there for correctional officers as far as recognizing or helping us deal with this kind of stuff. And if you look at, like, veterans and people who do military service. We're just now recognizing the effects of what this can do. So essentially, we're the Vietnam vets of the law enforcement community right now. Corrections fatigue is unavoidable. If you talk to a group of correctional officers long enough, you'll understand that this affects them. It doesn't affect us all to where we're sitting in a dark room with a loaded gun every night. But when we go to restaurants, we sit in certain spots because we have to see who's coming and going. Okay? We carry a gun everywhere we go because the world is such a dangerous place, right? So small changes like that are what corrections fatigue does. So this course is like an emotional x-ray for that. And it gets us talking about and recognizing these kind of things that we're dealing with. You know, this is why, you know, you're depressed. This is why you are screaming at your kids for not taking out the trash when you ask them to. These are things that if a police officer has these kind of symptoms, we say this is part of their job affected them and changed them. But for us, we don't. We say, oh, this is just something that they did before. So what this course is, and Dr. Foxall talks about, you know, reentry assistance and all of the programs that we're doing for the inmates. Essentially what this course is, Corrections Fatigue to Fulfillment, is a reentry program for officers. It teaches us to recognize the symptoms and why things are happening to us. And then it tells us, you know, we have to get off the couch, we have to re-engage and reconnect with society, and that it's okay that you feel these kind of things. So the goal is, what I'd like to do is get this information out to the staff, to the public, to the families of correctional officers, and then provide, you know, training courses, facility tours, maybe events at the jail, so we can be, so we can have more knowledge and help that. I would like this course to be part of our regular curriculum instead of something extra. I think we spend a lot of time on self-defense tactics, and that's about 5% of our job. What I do 100% of the time is go home and deal with my family, and so that's something we need to prepare officers for. This can't be an internet course. This can't be e-learning. These people, my brothers and sisters, give the county 20, 30 years of their life. And we need to give them 8 hours in a classroom. We need to show them how to process kind of stuff. The second part of that, and what I've learned is, this course is great, and now we start talking about, hey, this thing bothers us, and then we don't have any support after that. And so I've been working with the union and with Chaplain Condon about creating a peer support team that can respond to these kind of things and help point officers in the right direction for the assistance that they need, like the Employee Assistance Program and other resources like that. So that's where we're at now. I've done 3 classes. We've held 3 classes. I put about 40 some members, officers through it. The feedback's been great, but we have a lot of work to do. So I appreciate the work Dr. Foxall's done for this and that the union has done, and I appreciate you guys for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, we'll go off the script here and take some questions since you're here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
It's Officer Young, Bill Young.
Okay. This course that you're talking about, what's the title of it?
It's Corrections Fatigue to Fulfillment. So what it does is it identifies all the negative aspects of the job, and we spend the morning commiserating with ourselves, and then the afternoon is the fulfillment part. How do you re-engage, and how do we move past all the dark stuff?
And you have personally presented this to these 40 officers that you're talking about?
Yes, me and Sergeant Hike, we went to Colorado in March and took the training, and then we have put through, we've had 3 classes, and so about 40 have been in attendance for that, yeah.
And is this done on behalf of Douglas County, or are you doing this independently of the Department of Corrections?
We have, no, this is, Douglas County is supporting it. I went to the union and presented it and asked them for their support, and then the union then went to Dr. Foxall, and we did a presentation, and he put his full support behind it as well.
So this is a collaborative effort between the administration and the FOP?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I was wondering if one of the FOP representatives could step up for a second, maybe introduce yourselves.
Dave Aldrich, FOP Lodge 8, and I would just like to say thank Bill Young for what he's done. He came to the union in February and asked for support on this, and he kind of held a gun to our head because he does carry a weapon, he said, that if we didn't send him, he was going to pay for this on his own. The entry fee was $1,100. He was going to cover his own travel. So Young was going to go out $2,000 to $2,500 out of his own pocket. He feels that strongly about it. He's been supportive to our staff, and not just in these situations, but October 16th, we had a female in Housing Unit 12 jump off the top tier. 2 female officers were present. He was at home. I called him. He was on the phone with him the next 3 days, helping deal with that issue. So it's not only this what he deals with, but he also helps the officers at work who deal with these traumatic experiences too. So he does a great job.
And Dave, have you taken this course yourself?
I haven't. In fact, I've been scheduled twice, but I've had a promise to my son that I'd watch a couple sporting events, and I couldn't skip out on that yet.
And we'd like to hear back from you after you do. I think this is a really important service that you're offering. You know, the corrections officers provide essential public safety services to our community. It's a high-stress job. I think we all recognize that. And so the information that you're providing, which I was not aware of relative to the PTSD factors, the shortened lifespan factors, the increased suicide and other life-threatening factors, really point to a need for the kind of services that you're providing. So I think that it's something that we definitely should integrate into our county policies relative to offering them to all the corrections officers. And I want to commend Dr. Foxall for stepping up and making this part of his mission as Director of Corrections. So that it's an integral part of what we offer to you as corrections officers in terms of helping you cope with the high-stress job that's essential. I mean, we have to have the services you provide. Your essential services. And I commend the watchmen of the FOP who do this hard work for all of us. Thank you very much. So thanks for bringing this up. This is a great program, and I think that it offers some real help to people who do a hard job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks. Commissioner Kraft, were your comments for this part or? Okay, thank you.
Okay, with respect to conclusion number 5, with regard to our population, we had 1,602 admissions last month. We had 1,671 releases last month. Our high count was 1,324. Our low count was 1,225. Getting into November, we hit 1,313 yesterday. Our count is still over 1,300. It's a very high count for this time of the year. Our ADP, or average daily population, is 1,267. Last month, our U.S. Marshal population decreased a bit. However, our ICE population increased. Our felony pretrial population decreased. Our misdemeanor pretrial population increased. Female population decreased a bit. However, there's still 3 female housing units open. And towards the beginning of the month, we were almost 190 on the female population, so female population remains significantly high. Custodial sanctioned bed days during the month of October, 176. With regard to medical, we had 1,325 intake screenings, 502 health and physical assessments, and 353 discharge referrals. Mental health, initial psychiatric assessments were 79, 175 mental health assessments, 52 mental health infirmary placements, referrals to outpatient psych med management were 6 of those. Mental health and co-occurring disorder treatment programs are 180. Mental health therapy referrals, 224, and referrals to long-term psychiatric facility, there was 1. And we've also incorporated for your review a mental health acuity pyramid. You can still see that we're running 34, 35% in terms of the serious mental illness, and the other charts follow.
Okay. Commissioner Kraft, did you want to ask any questions?
I'm going to withdraw my request to speak.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Foxall? Seeing none, thank you very much, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
A motion to reconvene into the Douglas County Board of Commissioners meeting. Motion by Commissioner Kraft, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
One moment, please. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rogers. Motion passes, all present voting yes.
I am going to skip around here for just a second, and if you could go to the HR committee agenda items. There's 2 agenda items that I'd like to take up. Item 3, resolution to allow county employees to make donations to the Douglas County Community Friends of Extension and 4-H Douglas County Sarpy County Foundation through the use of their payroll deduction. And also item 5, resolution to allow Douglas County employees to make donations to the Douglas County Deputy Sheriff's Foundation through the use of payroll deduction. Could I get a motion to approve? Second. Motion by Commissioner Duda, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Were there any questions or comments? Commissioner Duda?
Thank you. This is something I've dreamed of for years, and I'm so thrilled that we're finally able to make this happen. And there's one further step I would like to take, and that's next year when it comes time for our United Way drive, that we have the 4 foundations that are within county government side by side with United Way. And any employees who choose to share some of their wages with whatever, I would like them to have the opportunity to have all of the county's foundations on an equal basis with United Way, an equal footing. And this is a big step in that direction. I'm thrilled to see it happen.
I agree wholeheartedly with you on that. And no further questions or comments, please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
We'll go back to the beginning of the agenda. Item 1, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, November 7th. And item B, approval of claims submitted for process through Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
Next is the consent agenda, items A through N, and there is request to pull item H, and there's someone who wants to speak on that. So is there a motion to approve the consent items A through N minus H? Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I just have a couple of questions. Which one do we pull?
H.
H? Okay. And we're pulling that off of today's agenda?
No, we're just taking it separate from the whole.
I think Dr. Foxhall might still be here, or Michael Myers from Community Corrections. I just see on item C, interlocal agreement with Sarpy County to house Sarpy County inmates at Douglas County's Reentry Assistance Program. Michael? Yeah. So we just heard from the Director of Corrections, and we are running pretty full in our corrections facility. So this acceptance of, or potential, I guess, acceptance of Sarpy County inmates, tell me how that fits into our overall population.
We do have available bed capacity in the Criminal Justice Center and Community Corrections, and so this would be exclusively for the CJC. This would basically be an additional source of revenue for us in being able to house some individuals who can take advantage of services offered in the CJC, and we've incorporated in the per diem costs that we will charge Sarpy County, we've incorporated not only the room and board, but the cost of delivering those programming fees as well. So this will not impact the jail population, but just fill up beds that are not filled in a community corrections center.
And what is that per diem cost that we're contracting for?
It is approximately $71, and it's just a hair under 71.
And what's the duration of the agreement?
It's a 3-year agreement. And we have provisions in the contract so that if does come a point in time when our capacity issues in community corrections to house our own people are an issue, we are not obligated to take a certain number of people from Sarpy County. We have the right of first refusal on every referral they send to us.
Okay. We're having a briefing later today, and you're probably aware of corrections relative to the construction underway there from the public safety bond. And I know that involves the movement of populations in order to allow units to be vacated and redone, and then that's a concern. So this doesn't in any way impact on that?
No, everything is contained. This agreement is solely contained to the CJC, or the Criminal Justice Center.
I see. Very good. Thank you. I just have a couple other quick questions, and I don't know if anybody's here from the Sheriff's Department regarding the accepting the funding of $24,842.40 to purchase equipment for the electric citation system. I see my old friend Kenny Bavasso wrote this grant. And
good morning, Commissioners. Tom Wheeler, Chief Deputy Sheriff.
Tom, tell us just real quickly, what does this do?
This will allow us to use e-ticketing, e-citation from the cars. It's a process where you have a printer in a car, some other associated equipment, and you can process the citation quickly.
Okay, so this isn't like the cameras out there on the stop lights that take your...
No, this is inside the car. It's just printers and other equipment, driver's license or operator's license reader to help you populate those fields more quickly and issue the citation.
And where's the funding coming from?
This is a state of Nebraska grant.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan. I was going to call you this morning. Last night I spoke at the League of Women Voters, and then a couple was there, expressed a real concern. I know it's in the city, but on 192nd, they're really concerned about the speed of the cars on that road between Dodge going over to Blondo and Maple. So I just want to make you aware of that, and you might take a look at that. I told the people I'd call you your office this morning, and being you're here, I brought it up, and I apologize for kind of something additional, but it was just last evening at the Garden Cafe that they had me there to speak. So thank you for watching, doing the best you can. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kavanaugh, did you have a question? Thank you, Tom.
Quick questions. Purchasing, Mr. Carlson, I think is here, but I wanted to ask about the sand and gravel purchases that we're making. Looks like a little over $1.2 million. And my only question there is, what's the sand and gravel for that we're buying? I don't know if anybody is here that could address that. It's a lot of sand and gravel.
Eric Carlson, purchasing agent. Yeah, that's for the sand and gravel for the highway department for winter roads use.
For putting on the
Correct,
roads.
for putting on the roads, exactly.
Okay. Not construction sand.
No, not at all. And in fact, just so it's set up that way with the primary and secondary, we do that purposely because obviously there can be shortages and they have to be able to go to one of the other vendors based on needs. So.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have one final inquiry, and I think Dr. Poor is here. I thought I saw her. Regarding number 7 under the Health Department's request, approval of the agreement from the Nebraska Department of Agriculture regarding inspection and regulation of food establishments located within Douglas County. And I know that is a big part of the Health Department's charge is to inspect restaurants. It has here that 80% of fee budgeted. Tell me a little bit how that works.
Okay, so good morning, Adi Porter, Douglas County Health Department. We have a city ordinance to actually have the authority to inspect all the restaurants in the city limit and 3 miles around it. So for those, you have told us several years ago that we charge what it really takes us to do the job. So that's how those permits are being sent out. And the restaurants that are, however, in the Douglas County area, outside of the 3 mile radius, outside of the city, there are still restaurants out there, and those are the authority of the Department of Agriculture, Nebraska Department of Agriculture. However, what they have done is they have asked us to do the inspections, and they will reimburse 80% of the cost that those permits are. 80% come to us, 20% go to the Department of Agriculture. It's a very small amount, but that's what the contract is about.
So overall, both inside this zone and outside this zone, how much do we spend on inspecting restaurants every year, if you know?
We spend a lot of money, probably more than $1 million.
I see. And how many people, roughly speaking, in the Department of Health are tasked with restaurant inspection?
We have around 9 inspectors at this time. We always have open positions, however.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to
Thank you, you too, Adi. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
If the motioner and seconder would allow item H just to be added back in, and we could take comments and just add it to the whole, are you okay with that?
Fine.
Okay. Do you want to present your comments, Doug?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Doug Kagan, representing Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom. On Tuesday, you're scheduled to vote on pay increases for union and non-union employees. These increases range from 3% to 4%, much above the Midwest Consumer Price Index inflation rate. We believe that county wage and benefit increases historically have set at levels above the increases in inflation and above raises dispensed in the private sector, therefore aggravating the budget gap each year, forcing county board members to wrestle with balancing the annual budgets. Therefore, we urge Douglas County Commissioners to set wage hikes for the coming calendar year to match or approximate the rate of inflation for Midwest urban cities or thereabouts. If you see the chart below from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can see the rate of inflation for 2017 so far through October was 1.5%. Also below that, you'll see that the federal employees are going to receive only a 1.9% raise next year, and even military employees 2.1%. If you flip the page, you'll see the...
Is there a way to put the chart up for Doug, maybe?
Well, I don't... You want me to lay it on here? I've never used the machine before.
Set it right up here.
Okay. Yeah, this is a survey report from Carlson Dittman Consulting for 2018.
Put it face up. There you go. No, you had it right the first time. There you go.
Perfect.
Okay. You'll see that the, thank you. The public sector projected a structural increase for 2018 for the public sector employees, all groups, is 1.98, and the private sector projected structural increase is 2018 is only 2.09%. And then if you even add on the additions for things like step increases, merit, and performance increases, and equity adjustments, it only goes up to a projection of 2.71%. So we think your resolution is way over. We realize that the county health center employees do a really good job. We've heard them speak here before, and the people who reside there think very highly of them. But nonetheless, every year when we work with you on the budget, there's a budget gap. And one of the causes of that is the wage and benefit increases. So we'll respectfully ask you to vote no on this resolution.
Commissioner Morgan?
Well, I'm sorry, my light was on, but I'll speak anyway. Doug, I appreciate your bringing this information to us. And, you know, I'm not sure, I tend to agree with you, and I don't know if others want to comment about it or not.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Doug, thanks for bringing this before us. You know, I have not only looked at this, but I've agreed with you in previous years, and I've been kind of the lone ranger on this, particularly with the item that you mentioned in terms of the non-union employee pay raises that are on the agenda today. And so I guess you want to talk about that in terms of the rationale behind that recommendation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And have you heard the rationale from our human relations people or anyone else relative to that?
No.
I don't know if there's someone from human relations
Well,
here.
that's not this agenda item, though. This is the contract for the union.
Are you going to come back when we get to the agenda item that we're talking about in terms of the pay raises for the non-union employees?
Well, this was for both. You had, well, it's different on the agenda, I realize that, but this covers everyone. It's general, for union or non-union.
Right. And what I'm saying is we have an actual percentage increase that is coming up on the agenda, which is, I think, in excess of the percentage increase that you're seeing in this contract. Marcos, what's that percentage in this contract?
Are you asking for EULA Health Center, the actual increases for
Correct.
year after year, or are you asking for the non-union? That's a
The
separate item.
percentage increase in this contract that we're
Yeah,
discussing?
so for the 2017 year, it's a 3% flat rate increase.
And the duration of the contract is?
It's a 3-year contract,
And
so it'll take us into 19.
Okay. So the percentages for each year are what?
3% for 17, starting January 1, 3% for 18, and a 4% for 19.
What was it, 19, I'm sorry?
4%, 3, 3, and 4.
Okay. So maybe you'll like to come back when we get to the other group of employees who are even higher than this particular collective bargaining unit. But we appreciate your input. I mean, I ask the same questions. And when we get to that point in the agenda, I think we'll have the ability to have HR come up here and explain to you. I think that there's a rationale, and reasonable minds can maybe disagree on that rationale. But I think it's important for you and for the public to hear what that rationale is. And we're not just picking numbers out of thin air, but they have a rationale for that. I haven't always agreed with it in the past, as you'll recall. I've agreed with the argument that you put forward in the past, but
This is a monthly test of the Emergency Alert System for broadcast stations and cable systems of Nebraska, in cooperation with the FCC and other government authorities. Equipment is being tested that can quickly provide warnings during emergencies. If this had been an actual emergency, official information, news, or instructions would have followed the alert tone. This concludes this test of the Emergency Alert System.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Doug Cook, your Douglas County Planner. So the Planning Commission met. I have 2 months here for you. The Planning Commission met in September regarding the 2017 NEC. So every 3 years, the state of Nebraska adopts a state electrical code. We're in 2017 cycle. We are currently under the 2014 NEC, and the picture you have in front of you shows the 2014 on the left and the 2017 on the right. There's the 2014. You're probably wondering what that number is at the top of the page. Are you?
Number of pages.
Thank you. Very good, Madam Chair. It's 910 pages in the 2014, and it went down to 856 in the 2017. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval of adoption of the 2017 NEC unanimously and ask that you concur with that recommendation.
All right, is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak for or against this item during the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Duda, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote. Oh, Commissioner Kraft, sorry, didn't see your name there.
Not terribly relevant, but did they use the same print font, or did they go to a smaller print font to get to the less pages?
Seriously?
Seriously.
Commissioner Kraft, I looked at the books, but I don't remember if the font was the same.
Okay. Numbers can be very deceiving. That's why I brought that up.
Please vote.
Commissioner Kavanaugh is not present. All commissioners present voting yes. Motion passes.
Item B, farmstead lot split application for preliminary plat for Wynwood Inc. CC Jeff Pruse, and this is at 12121 North 192nd Street. Doug is here from the Environmental Services, and we can take action if we so desire.
This was heard last month at our October Planning Commission meeting. It is your typical farmstead lot split. As the chairman mentioned, 12121 North 192nd. About where the numbers there on the screen is where the house is. The request is to split off an existing house and an existing detached garage on approximately 5 acres and separate that from the surrounding farm ground, and that parent parcel is about 71 acres. So the criteria for a farmstead lot split, don't need to go through this. I will tell you that this application meets those criteria. Here's an aerial view of the house and the detached garage. North 192nd Street in this area is a gravel road. Here is a blow-up of the survey. Again, the house and the detached garage. County vehicle, the 2 posted signs. You see the house ahead of you, 192nd Street in the foreground. This is looking south. This is looking north. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plat and asks that you concur with that recommendation.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this agenda item during the public hearing? I will close the public hearing. What's the will of the board?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Duda, seconded by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote.
Motion passes. All present voting yes.
Item C, a farmstead lot split application for the final plat for the Wynwood location.
No additional comments, Commissioners. The Planning Commission did recommend approval.
Okay. Anyone in here wishing to speak for or against this item during the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Duda, second by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote.
Motion passes. All present voting yes.
And lastly, item D on the same location, and the request is a rezoning from agriculture to RR2 rural residential with individual services. Doug Cook from Environmental Services is still here with us.
So about where the cursor is where the house and the detached garage is. The property, the parent parcel is currently zoned ag. You can see, however, that to the north, this is Shiloh Ranches, which is zoned RR2. To the south is a development called Shannon Hills, which is near and dear to my heart because when I was growing up, our dog's name was Shannon. No relation.
About that.
And so this is in the growth area of the county. This rezone request is not for the entire parcel. It's only for the 5 acres. And so Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval and asks that you concur with that recommendation.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak during the public hearing on this agenda item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Duda, seconded by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
Item E is special use permit application submitted by Lyman Ritchie Corporation, and it's a special use request to allow the mining of topsoil, sand, and gravel and rock on approximately 312 acres. This is, the general location is south of Pacific, west of South 264th Street, and north of West Center. Doug Cook is here from Environmental Services, and the board can take action today if we so desire. Doug?
Okay, so where are we? You will recognize this area. We are just to the north of the convenience store and gas station on 264th and West Center. We are directly west of the Two Rivers Storage, which was in front of you a couple months ago, and it is directly northwest of an existing mining operation by Mallard Sand and Gravel down in the southeast quadrant of that intersection. So it's a lot of acres, 312 as the chairman mentioned. There you can see it there. It stretches from Pacific on the north all the way down to Center on the south. There are the parcel numbers, otherwise the legal description would be days long. What the comprehensive plan has this area designated is extraction, and you'll see that we are in this area here. So this request is in compliance with the county's comp plan. Here is a drawing submitted by the applicants. They have explained that they will start in the northern part of the property and work their way south. Here you can see like where the operation will be concentrated, and this next picture, they look like kidneys to me, but anyway, it kind of shows the stockpiles and where the buildings and all the major activities going to be there. It's hard to take a picture of this site, but I did post 2 signs. This sign is at the corner of 264th and Pacific, and then I went down on Center Street, and there's a second sign. The Planning Commission recommend approval on a 4 affirmative vote, 1 abstention on this, and I did call Mr. Bob Woody, who abstained, and asked him for his reasoning, and he told me that years ago he was involved in legal action regarding a mining company, not Lyman Ritchie, but that he feels like he was tainted by the outcome of that and could not be objective, and so that's why he abstained. So the Planning Commission recommended approval on a 4-0 to 1 vote and asks that you concur with that recommendation.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this agenda item during the public hearing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tim Bando. I'm with the Lyman Ritchie Corporation, and we're here to answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you for being here. See Commissioner Kraft.
Quick question.
Sure.
How long do you expect this land to be involved in the mining? Any idea?
It's difficult to say. It depends on the deposits that are in the property and also on the sales of sand and gravel. So,
But in general, would we be looking at a decade, 2 decades?
over 2 decades.
Okay. And do you have an end game, the land use after you're done mining?
We're more concerned with the mining of the sand and gravel. We don't develop the land ourselves, so it's difficult for us to say what will be done with it when we're finished.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, no further questions or comments. Thank you for being here. I'll close the public hearing. What's the will of the board?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Kraft, seconded by Commissioner Duda. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
Next public hearing is item F. Public hearing to be held regarding the advisability of the proposed issuance by the county of one or more series of revenue bonds on behalf of the Nebraska-Oregon Recovery System. And this is a continuation, basically, of the agenda item we saw about a week or two ago. So, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair. My name is Steve Likes. I'm an attorney with the Kutak Rock Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of Nebraska-Oregon Recovery System regarding a request that the county board issue a revenue bond on its behalf for a facility to be constructed at approximately 38th and Leavenworth Street. We had the privilege of presenting before you 2 weeks ago about the project. I have with me today Kyle Herber with Nebraska-Oregon. I've also got Craig Jones with First National Bank. We're happy to answer any questions about the project and the use of the bond proceeds. And following the conclusion of the public hearing, we would appreciate adoption of a bond resolution approving the bonds.
This is the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What's the will of the board?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Duda. Please vote.
Commissioner Kavanaugh has rejoined us. All present voting yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you.
We'll move to committees, the first being the finance with the budget report as presented, unless there's any questions or comments. Next is the child youth. There's just the Douglas County youth. Are they here today, Chris? Oh, there he is. Douglas County Youth Center report presented by Director Brad Alexander and Mark LaFleur. Good morning.
Good morning. Apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
All right. You might have sat down too soon. Are you on yours? Yeah. Is this yours? Thank you. Nah, I don't think we're on the right one here. While he's doing that, I wanted to pass on a story. We told it. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. And I managed to get rid of it again. Oh, there we go. Okay. Real quick before we get started, I wanted to pass on a story. We meet quarterly. It's a labor management committee. And I'm always so proud of the people that I work with over at the youth center. And something came up at that committee that I just wanted to bring to your attention. I'm not going to say any names, but one of the members on the committee mentioned that she has a godson, and her godson's neighbor had received a scholarship to Creighton, and he was thrilled about this opportunity, and by all accounts he's obviously a very good student and very, very helpful in the neighborhood. He's the kid that shows up to somebody's house that can't mow the lawn and helps and shovels walks and does these sorts of things. And so he was talking to this lady's godson about this opportunity that he has, and he was excited about it. He was also really, really nervous because his family doesn't have a whole lot, and he was concerned about how he was going to look and how he was going to dress when he showed up to attend Creighton. And this lady happened to mention this to another employee, and this was news to Mark. This was news to me. This was news to Rondi Woodard. It would just quietly happened at the youth center. And within about 48 hours, the kid had received a brand new wardrobe to start his education at Creighton. And she said, and she brought this up to the committee just to kind of as a reminder, I think, to some extent, of the good people that we have there. And she felt that that really represented, and she was so proud of them. And the kid came to her, you know, very obviously thankful with tears in his eyes. And all of a sudden felt much more comfortable about this opportunity that he was presented. So thank you for allowing me the time to share that with you. So our report's going to start on, if we could, on slide number 3, please. So we do the graduation ceremonies. We had one again in September, and we had one in October. Parent-teachers conferences were held on September 19th and September 20th, and we had 12 parents attend the parent-teachers conference, and we'll do that again on January 23rd and 24th. What's not in this this presentation that I want to mention is the Barnes & Noble Book Fair, and that will be held on December 16th. So anyone that shows up or online to make a purchase at Barnes & Noble just has to mention that they support the Douglas County Youth Center, and 15% of the purchase will be contributed to our education program. We've provided that information to Leah Baez as well to hopefully get the word out help us get the word out to the community.
That December 16th?
Yes, Commissioner,
Okay,
December
thank
16th, yep. And I'll just, if anybody wants to write this down, when you go online, there's a code that you can enter when you make your purchase, and that code is 12272597. 12272597, and your online purchase, 15% of that will be contributed to the Youth Center as well. Moving now to slide number 5. Title I has provided funding to the Douglas County Youth Center to offer an online tool. We currently have one, but this is a new tool. It's called Acellus. It's going into local school districts. It's already at 2 or 3 different placements right now, and we consider ourselves fortunate that Title I thought of us and offers this now to, or will be offering this to the Youth Center. Our staff will be attending some training in January, and the kids will then have an opportunity to go somewhat seamlessly between, you know, their school districts and placements as they move back and forth sometimes. And they'll be able to see exactly what they saw at their school district or at another placement, and that will start in. They'll attend training in January and then start shortly thereafter. Moving to slide 6, research shows us that employment opportunities and productive use of free time for young people has a direct correlation with the likelihood that they will become involved in delinquent activity. And so we're fortunate to have Career Connections at the Douglas County Youth Center. And what Career Connections does, well, it does a number of things, but as it applies to the Workforce Investment Act, it allows us to get the kids enrolled in the Workforce Investment Act. Heartland helps us with that. They'll be coming up, starting in January, they're going to be coming up to the Youth Center twice a month to help us get the kids enrolled. Used to be a summer program, now it's a 12-month program. The really neat thing about this is it provides a stipend for 14 and 15-year-old youth to participate in a job readiness program. For people between the ages of 16 and 24, they're provided assistance in finding a job, and then there's an incentive for the employer to hire them, in that the act pays for the first $6,000 of their salary. So Mark was instrumental in that, and I expect that to be a really, really good opportunity for some young people. On to slide 7. The foster grandparent program, we got one. We just haven't met them yet. And so that, as I understand it, will take place sometime after the Thanksgiving holiday. We're hoping to meet that person. Continue to do yoga. We're in the 4th or 5th week now. Started off a little, I wouldn't say rough, but maybe slow. The kids were a little apprehensive. It was something new, is really what it boiled down to. And they are becoming more comfortable with yoga, and I think the support for the program is really starting to build. I brought this to you before, the Dusk to Dawn program. We'd hoped that the slide shows that it started November 1st. That's not accurate. We were hoping that would be the case. They're putting together a video. One of the really important components of the program is an opportunity to provide young people with the realities of violence and the measures that trauma surgeons go through to try to save lives. So they're being very, very thoughtful as they put together a video to bring into the youth center to show to the kids. Obviously, they can't go out and visit these places, so they're trying to put together a very, very good video to bring into those kids. And once that takes place, then that program will arrive at the youth center. U-Turn, kind of in conjunction with that, it's a gang prevention program. That did start November 1st. We're piloting that in one of our living units, Unit 7, and they're showing up on Wednesday evenings to offer that program to those kids. It's currently being offered in 4 high schools and 2 middle schools. So we're lucky to be a part of that, I think. Teen Chat, I'd mentioned that again, and this is just an update. We're waiting for an agreement to be returned from Nebraska Children's Home Society, and once that happens, we're anxious to get that program rolling for the young ladies that we have at the youth center. On to slide 11. You look over to 2017, that's the admissions, that's kind of a forecasted number based on what we've seen through the end of October. The length of stay and the average daily population are actual numbers through the end of October. I want to direct your attention to the years 2012, 2013. You see a drop in our average daily population at that time. That came about when legislation was signed that removed an exemption that would have previously allowed status offenders to be securely detained. They removed that exemption, and status offenders were no longer allowed to be in secure detention, which was a good thing. And the reason I mention that, because that was a significant point in time for us, especially as you're looking at the data. So this will be outside of 2014, this is our highest average daily population that we've experienced since that change. And if we could move just past slide 12 and on to slide 13. This is something I want to clarify. I've talked quite a bit about the length of stay and the increase in it, and I brought it up at the Child and Youth Services Committee here recently. One of the things as I was addressing you with this information that I'd forgotten about, quite honestly, was that we had changed how we calculate length of stay a couple of years ago, and it was the right thing to do. We removed kids that were at the youth center for less than 24 hours. We pulled that out of the equation, and that's about 1/3 of our kids. So when we pull that out, obviously, you're going to see the length of stay rise significantly. And so I apologize for bringing this up and maybe causing people to believe it was something that it wasn't, when in fact we don't have any control over who comes to the youth center or how long they stay, but evidently we can change something in a calculation and certainly give that appearance. So that was my fault, and I apologize for that. But it's still, I guess it doesn't really explain what you see between 2016 and 2017. So I think there's still cause for concern, but just want to kind of reel that in and make everyone aware of the mistake that I made. If we could move to slide 21. This was something that was asked that we provide, kind of the reason why the kids show up. 47% of our kids still show up for new offenses. And within that 47%, I think the first time I provide this presentation, there was 10 offenses, and then I think the last time it was 11, and now this time it's 13, because seem to continue to have offenses that kind of sneak into that 3% range. And so the new ones this time are the stolen firearms and the use of a weapon to commit a felony, coming in at 3%. So I've included them, and that accounts for 69% of the new offenses that the kids are arriving at the youth center for. On to 22, admissions by race. A couple of things just to mention here. We see that African American youth in the 497, and again, that's an estimate, just kind of trying to use what we've got through the end of October and forecasting throughout the end of this year. And it looks like it's going down, but just to put this in perspective, there's still a lot of work to be done as it relates to disproportionate minority contact. Mark is the DMC, one of the DMC coordinators here, and tells me that yeah, it's going down in terms of numbers, but the ratio is still the same, and in fact may have actually increased just slightly. So just to make sure we don't see that slide as something that it's not. The one area of concern too is the Hispanic and Mexican youth appear to be on course to be the highest number that we've seen for that for that demographic since 2013. If we could move on to slide 27, please. So this is the credits that the kids have earned at the youth center, and just to point out just what a really good month October was for the young people at the youth center, and I think that reflects too on the educators that we have there as well. And then on to slide 35. This was something that Commissioner Boyle had asked for, and so Mark and I talked to the LMHPs and the nurse manager, and I can assure you that that number is higher than what you see there. The one that you see in September was a young person that was involved in a car accident that we didn't accept. They had to go out and get, we refer to it as a fitness for confinement form from the hospital, and they had some sort of a brain trauma due to that car accident. I think what Commissioner Boyle was looking for, and maybe others too, was a more historical perspective, if they ever experienced that in their life. I don't think we communicated that accurately to the people that are going to be gathering that information. We get it now, and so starting in November, the numbers will reflect anybody that experienced, and again, this will be self-reporting to some extent, the youth telling us that they've experienced this, and then through our contract with UNMC and the other people that do the physicals, the information may be validated, I suppose. But that will be adjusted, I'm sure, starting in November. But we're trying to get that information tracked. And then on to slide 38, which I think is just kind of a repeat of what I just mentioned. And we're going to add, I think the only thing different on that slide is that we'll be adding PTSD as a part of that as well, in addition to the traumatic brain injuries. And that is my presentation for this month.
Commissioner Kraft?
Brad, you used the word beginning treatment, or in your thing, youth testing positive for STDs begin treatment.
Yes.
When they are released from custody, do we have any follow-up?
Yes, we do.
And how many drop out of the treatment? How many complete it? Any idea?
No, honestly, I don't. We do it's not always easy to stay in contact with people once they leave. But
well, I realize that because so many of their parents live out of their cars, live out of transient.
A variety of
flop
situations.
in somebody's house,
yeah.
Yes.
But we certainly try to.
Okay. Do you feel it's a significant number that complete the treatment?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that the STD issue is a significant problem here.
No, I meant the completion of the treatment.
Oh, yeah, actually, it's really successful. The kids, once they realize they've tested positive, actually have a desire to complete the treatment. I mean, they
Good.
want to finish that, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's all.
Commissioner Rogers?
Brad, can you speak to, I added to slides 32, 33, and 34, and I guess the story that they're telling.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at slide 32 right now. The reality is the kids that come to us they haven't had the health care that others have been privileged to. And so they come to us, and many times it's been years since they've seen a dentist or a health care provider and other people. And so when they arrive, the pediatricians, and we're really lucky to have the contract that we have with UNMC and the work that they do with our young people. It's literally a pediatric clinic. And then, it's certainly no secret that we have mental health issues. We continue to be about the kids that are arriving at our door, about 1 out of 4, and I think that's on its way up. 1 out of 4.
No, what is the blue and red? Because you got it coded on other ones, but not on this one.
No,
blue and red, man.
Which slide are you on specifically?
33.
33.
All of them tell you what the key is, but this.
Oh, yep. That's red is mental health, blue is pediatrician.
So do you all get numbers like income GA type numbers that you can profile? You don't. Is that a question that you can self-ask? I'm trying to get a feel for it. If these kids are Medicaid covered or what?
Right.
Is there a question out there that you can ask that can give you an idea to have a approximate guess of if those kids have health insurance when they come in there? I guess that's the question.
What'd you say?
Because that's the soft handoff that is made outside.
Mark LaFleur. About 20% of those that we see coming in may be on Medicaid or the HHS. And there are some that come in that have their private insurance as well, but that percentage is not as high.
Can you ask somebody, is there a question that you can voluntarily ask to see if you can get that?
Well, at the point of intake, it's the youth, and in many cases they may not know, but there's ways that we can inquire and find out, because once the youth go in and they have their medical checkup, we do make contact with the parents. So there is a pathway to find out that information.
Yeah, if you could inquire about that, I'd be interested.
Okay.
Some way that's not too intrusive.
Right.
Thanks. Thank you.
Brad, can you go back to page 13 on that average length of stay? And can you list the top 3, 5, whatever reasons why that length of stay is longer than it was in 2015, 16? Why are we seeing an increase, other than your recalculation?
The one is certainly the recalculation. I still feel as though the legislation that pushed kids for Class 3, Class 4 felonies, Class 1 misdemeanors into juvenile court, I think that may have had an impact. I worry a little bit about the length of time that evaluations take. They're doing a really good job of getting the kids off to Kearney or Geneva once they've received a court order instructing them to take them there. That's going well. Yes. All right.
Another big part, so many of the young people are coming in, as mentioned, on the mental health issues, and it could range to about 2/3 of the youth that are coming in on warrants, and many youth have kind of cycled through the system, so getting them placed at a location is quite the challenge sometimes. So and all these things kind of add up together. It's not any one thing, but certainly young people with mental health conditions, getting them placed is a challenge, and sometimes it takes a little longer before acceptance happens with some of our youth.
To follow up, that's a great point, and follow that up too. Kids that are honestly kicked out of other placements, when they come back to us, they seem to sit a while once they've returned to the youth center.
But does that have to do with a new evaluation being done on the kid? Or
No, I think it seems to me like it has more to do with other facilities being reluctant to take someone who's been removed from a previous placement.
So, okay, so if we would take, and I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that needs to stop going up, the average length of stay.
Agreed.
So, so if we can pinpoint 3 to 5 things that, so say it's the legislation, and then we need to talk to our senators about that. And then if that's tied to evaluations not being done in a timely manner, then we need to maybe think outside the box a little bit and say, all right, what can we do to get those evaluations done faster? Who are we dependent solely upon that happening? DHHS?
Probation.
Probation?
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, we've got the case management committee, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the, I mean, to whatever his 3 issues are, there's another discussion to be there that I guess comes up recently, and I think it's something in the case processing piece that I just can't peel out. I mean, probation is some part, but you know, there's another court decision that probably needs to happen there too. Do you think we're at the point we need an expediter? You know, we always have these discussions, and the public defender's office talks about a person as expedited, but it isn't for the system to some degree. Usually if there's an expediter, that person is in the court or in your department, and all of this, I mean, would an expediter help to run herd, for lack of a better term, to make sure that somebody's driving, to make sure that somebody's trying to get these kids out? I mean, some places have an expediter. Do you think you're at that point?
Somebody absolutely needs to be paying attention to that. And we have our
And I guess for
admissions.
lack of a better term, an expediter is, for lack of a better term, almost like a
navigator.
Yeah, good term, a navigator. The specific term is if a kid is sitting there, they are driving the system to get that kid out. So,
Yeah, I mean, we've got our admissions manager watches that, and Mark's got the multidisciplinary treatment team. They address those issues, and that's a pretty collective group, and they meet every Tuesday morning to look at those issues as well.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think I forgot the term Nicole Goley uses, but it's the Project Harmony number. Is it 1492? Or
I think that sounds right.
Team, yeah.
Is it an answer something? I mean, that's what I feel like you all are trying to form. Is it something and formalizing something like that? What
Yeah.
players have to get together?
We get support from Region 6 with regards to our licensed mental health practitioners and our psychologists. And we also have others that join us in our multidisciplinary treatment team meetings, including probation and HHS. And they, along with the mental health team and our clinic staff, meet to review youth who have been there for extended periods of time, or youth who are awaiting placement or trying to determine a place for placement. And all that information is provided to the agencies that are there in an effort to move youth along. And so the MDT, and when I first arrived here, we had an expediting committee. And in some regards, this is similar, but the focus on the mental health is a little bit more expanded because we're seeing that the delay in getting some of the young people out is because of the nature of their mental health condition and where they're going from there.
But I guess, I mean, again, I don't know how to so now what I'm fearing is that we're gonna sit here and just watch this go up without holding some of these people accountable, which I know it's not your job to hold them accountable, but what I'm saying is that if it's the evaluations that aren't getting done and probation is the one who is responsible for doing that, then we need to find out what their underlying issue is, and if it's bringing in somebody else to do the evaluations, to me, that's money well spent because you're moving the child along rather than them sitting in the youth center.
And again, I think the length of stay issue was the primary issue that the case management committee was to be looking at. And they have, I think, all of those people at the table in that committee.
But they haven't come up with any solutions.
Not that I know.
Well, can I was hoping to bring it this week, but it hadn't got finalized by the committee. You all are preparing to present next month, right? At some point, there's 3 meetings next month?
Correct. For December?
Yeah. So you all going to come back before?
If you'll have us.
So it may be a little belated, Madam Chair, but I can bring there's I think another level of discussion that they're having with this that I'd asked some people to come to the last meeting, but because of an issue Brad had, we had to push it back. I would like to introduce to the group this QRS data report, and there's some other things under there because in addition to the number that they have, I mean, length of stay is another piece, but just the number that's there in regards to overall wise, my understanding is a lot of those kids are coming back in there for violations. And so there's another discussion that they were trying to explain to me that is regard to some other players at the table. And if I can get that in front of you to let you see it and let them explain a little bit, I think there's a bigger discussion to have during the budget time about some things that's been brought up, but I just can't verify them yet because I don't understand them totally. So that's basically to say that Brad's got those 3 issues, but there's another piece behind there that I can't say yet because I don't understand it enough to explain.
And if I could just say, probation has, they're in this with us. They've been looking for solutions as well, but there's more than one issue afoot, and I like the approach of coming up with 3 to 5 things to move forward on. But we'd like to see our numbers back to where they were 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, again, I think if there's something that we can do to help that, because I don't think we want to sit and watch the graph continue to go up without any real solutions coming. Maybe the solutions don't work that we come up with, but at least we're trying to get that graph to go the other way.
And some of it, quite honestly, may be the fact that they're screening so many kids out at the beginning, and so we're seeing kids with very acute issues and certainly a needier population.
But then that is a conversation that we have to have with those in the community that either we don't have those services for these children to go to, or their capacity is not sufficient, or they've already been there, done that, and the providers aren't accepting them back.
And I think that goes back to us holding people accountable and for some outcomes, and having a concerted effort so that we're actually looking at the work that they're doing. Sometimes it feels like kids are getting kicked out for behaviors that brought them there in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Because they get there, they feel like they have an issue, and
Exactly.
That's how I feel sometimes.
Absolutely.
We've never kicked anybody out.
Well, again, I think that if we can try to focus on either that 3 to 5, whatever, and there may be other issues that are involved, but if we can focus on ones that we're seeing repeatedly because of the delays it's causing the average length of stay for those children to be in our center longer, then we need to try to find solutions for that. Okay. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thanks for this report. A couple of things. We received, just this morning, a request from the Health Department, and if you haven't got it, I'll forward it to you, to the stakeholders in the area of health disparities in our local community, and suggestions that we might have going forward. And you mentioned a good point there that, a lot of these young people that come to you haven't really had any
correct
health care on any kind of a consistent basis, which is very sad.
It is sad.
Tragic. But as long as they are with us, and if we do have the capacity to provide some of those remedial health care services, that might be something that would go into this health department survey of what can we do going forward. And like I said, I'm just throwing that out there because if you haven't gotten it, let me know, and I'd be happy to forward it to you. I think you're in.
If I've gotten it, I've missed it.
It just came like 8 a.m. this morning.
Oh, okay.
So it's probably in your inbox.
Okay.
But let me know if you don't.
I appreciate it.
The second thing is, I just want to know, because we have been informed of a project involving a new juvenile justice center, which would be right in your wheelhouse. And I wondered about your involvement in those discussions relative to, I know there was a needs assessment that went around to people that would potentially be impacted by this, and if you've been involved in that.
Met with Karen Chen, and we've exchanged some emails. I believe we've answered all of her questions, haven't heard back from her. Okay. Commissioner Borgeson spent some time with me, okay. And you'd indicated that you'd like to come out sometime after Thanksgiving. So. Right. What you're talking about in terms of these head counts is directly related to what, if anything, would be constructed going forward in terms of yes.
A new youth center or whatever you would call it. And if that was incorporated into a larger juvenile justice center, of course, that would impact the overall project scope. So when you communicated with Ms. Chen, you gave her space kind of parameters?
Not beyond the fact that our current facility is about 90,000 square feet.
I see.
And then we talked more specifically about statistics and data.
Okay. And just in general, the last time I was through your facility, there were areas that were no longer in use, which is a good thing because we're not in the business of trying to build the biggest holding centers that we can. So of that 90,000, currently, what is in use?
All of it now.
Okay.
With PREA, reducing our ratio from staff to youth ratio to 1 to 8, all of the living units are currently open, and 2 of them, because of the ratio, we have to have 2 staff members on the unit during the day.
Okay, so if you were envisioning going to a new venue, you'd be in that ballpark space-wise? Space needs would be similar to what you have?
Yeah, I would probably want to give that a little more thought, I think.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. No other questions or comments?
All right. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.
You guys too. Next is the Human Resources Weekly Personnel Report from Civil Service as presented. If anybody has any questions or comments about that report. Next is our legislative issues. Item B is the resolution approving the Douglas County's 2018 legislative priorities. And of course, as we always say, this is an ongoing list, but for us to begin with, those are listed on this resolution. Some to be added, some to be potentially taken off as we move forward. But as we move into our conversation that we will be having with our senators, we always like to have at least a list to begin with. So do we have a motion to approve that? Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Duda. Please vote. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I just going to ask real quickly. We had discussed Turk legislation that had been introduced and is probably going to be reintroduced, and I don't know if we want to specifically talk about that in our resolution talk, but I think it's important that we be engaged in that discussion, which is going to occur in the 2018 legislative session. I also think there is probably going to be discussion and legislation relative to possibly making the assessor's office an appointed position rather than an elected position. I know that Commissioner Morgan has spoken in favor of this in the past, and so I just am interjecting those two items as items that will probably be before us as well as the session progresses.
Okay. Commissioner Morgan?
I think in this section, or this session of the legislature, it's going to be a real challenge with the bills they have left over, the 60-day session, and I've talked to some senators about it, Hinkleman, in fact, last night, Senator Hinkleman. So I think this will be a difficult session. I think we start to make some steps, and then hopefully they'll have some study committees, and we can get some things going. And I know Mr. Kagan is going to be working on some items, but I've had that same conversation. So, you know, I think we'll see how things go.
Yep, absolutely.
And I know I'm going to miss that breakfast because we originally thought we were doing it the 14th, and I have a daughter's birthday and be out of town for that. But I will attend the one in January when we have the breakfast at the Capitol. I think it's on a Monday, the 8th of January. And I will be down for that. And that should be a good one, too.
Yep.
Have the invitations, Marcos, gone out to the senators about January 8th?
Commissioner, we're working on that this week,
Right.
in conjunction with Sean Kelly, our lobbyist.
Yeah, let's hope we
They will.
can get them there and start right at 8 so they have some time with us. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Please vote.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
We'll move to item 6, the discussion on and action on non-union pay increases, and this is presented by Matt Overly from our Human Resources Department, and this has been presented about, I think, 4 times at the Human Resources Committee meetings, so, wait, motion? Motion by Commissioner Duda, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Matt?
Good morning, Commissioners, and happy early Thanksgiving to everyone. Do want to miss out on that. We have discussed a lot of these issues at the Human Resources Committee meetings, and looking at the market is really where we look for our non-union increases. Would you mind turning on the overhead, please? And just a quick summary so that everyone else can see that. So looking at the industry, looking at salary surveys and professional HR groups that are nationwide, the average percentage increase for 2018 is right at 3% across all sectors, across all types of business. So that was a place that we started to look at those increases. Also, when we look back over time, we were in a position where we had union contracts that were giving larger increases than our non-union folks were receiving, and so we had taken steps over the last several years to correct that, and we're within a few tenths of a percent. So I feel like we can move on and maybe do some better things with our pay structures and things like that moving forward, and also that we are pretty much on par, non-union and union increases year over year. So I think we've made some great progress, and I think that as long as we can make sure to keep non-union wages on pace with the union wages, everything is great. Any other questions that I can answer?
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
We were provided with this information in hard copy, is that right?
This was back from the Human Resources Committee meeting.
Yes, so it's not in the packet here
Correct.
today.
No.
Could you provide that to us, please?
Absolutely.
The discussion that you heard earlier from Mr. Kagan provided some information that, the statistics are different, I guess you would say. And give us some idea of how that is, that his statistics, and I don't know if you haven't seen them, we have them here, or he can provide them to
I'm
you.
familiar with CPI. I mean, that is one factor, and I think it should be limited to one factor in the puzzle of what should we give an increase to. I don't know of any organization outside of the federal government that uses it as the biggest factor. And we're not competing against the government, the federal government, for employees. We're competing against private industry. And to base it off of one lagging indicator, in my mind, doesn't make as much sense. And reasonable minds can agree to disagree on that. But we can look at it as a factor, but it should not be the only thing that we look at. It's a lagging indicator of a well, I should say there's many different CPIs, calculations that we can come up with. But the CPIU is what I'm most familiar with and have used in the past and presented in other capacities. And so it's a lagging indicator of what a basket of goods would cost. And so if we do that, we have to make up some rules about it. Do we look at it year over year? Do we look at it month over month? Because we're projecting salaries forward a year, and if CPI goes through the roof suddenly to 6%, can we afford to give 6% raises? And what if it goes below zero, which it often does? And so do we take money away from people? And so looking at it as a piece of the whole puzzle makes sense. In my mind, looking at it as the only thing doesn't.
Okay. On the page that you have up, where it says average non-union step increases and average non-union range increases, those over the period of 2012 to present, if you average them out, would be, it appears to me, maybe in the 3% range. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be about right. I mean, just back of the hand math.
And some of the earlier years, 2012, 0.5% for step and 1% for range, and those go from 2 to 2.5, which would be very minimal. But in the last 3 years, and I've been kind of a skeptic on this approach, but there have been attempts. I want you to articulate on to do what? You said to catch up to some of the collective bargaining compensation packages. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's blurry.
Okay.
That's the
I
screen,
thought maybe
not my
Thanksgiving
eyes.
turkey had already taken hold, and I was.
Okay, very good.
I asked them to try to adjust
That's
it.
not quite as crisp. Go back. There, a little better.
All right. So when you look at, let's just take 2012. So we're about 1.6% behind the non-union step grades. So we have two different pay structures. Step structures where individuals get a step every year, an increase, in addition to any increase that the board would approve for the pay structures. The range employees are on a pay range, and they can be paid anywhere from the minimum to the maximum, based on the budget and their performance at the director, the department head, or elected official's discretion. So when we look at the union increases, the step increase is about 1.6 behind in 2012. It's 0.2 behind there, and then we start to make up those differences going forward. And so really what we wanted to do was make sure that over the last 5 to 10 years, that the average increase for all of our pay structures has been similar. And that's really what we wanted to do, is treat all of the civil service, union, non-union folks the same.
So these last 3 years, which are significantly higher than the union increases, were in order to close that gap. Is
Correct.
that right? So going forward, we're not going to experience this on a permanent basis, I hope.
Not unless there's something that would really swing the needle one way or the other. Yep.
Okay, but if we implement what is proposed today, are we going to have that parity? Because we'll be in the 4th year of this catch-up.
Correct. Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, we're within a few tenths of a percent for both range structures to be caught up. And so going forward, we just want to keep pace with what's negotiated in those collective bargaining agreements.
Okay, so that if we go ahead with this, the percent increase request that we will see this time next year is going to be pretty much the same as what we are seeing for the average union increases.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No other questions or comment? I believe there was a motion and a second.
Yes, there was.
Please vote.
Okay. Okay. Motion passes, all present voting yes.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Item 7, the 2018 salary for Chief Deputy Douglas County Clerk, setting it at $111,635. And this is, if you remember, we're setting Chief Deputies' salaries at about all of them at 4%, and the clerk has asked that his be increased to 8%, and he's before us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan Ash, Douglas County Clerk. I sent you all an email and talked to some of you. So maybe what I'm saying to you is repetitive, but just for the public, I feel like I need to justify, obviously, why I'm asking for a larger increase than the other chief deputies. And just so there's, I don't think there's confusion among you guys, but just for the public, I'm not asking for an additional 8% to the 4% that was just approved. This would, in her case, just replace it would just be an 8% increase to $111,635. So I'm not, in case anyone wonders if I'm asking for a 12% increase, I'm not. It's 8%. So basically, this would, difference between a 4% increase and 8% increase is $4,151. As I've said, I think in the past, when we've had other elected officials come before the board ask for a greater increase than what the other chief deputies were getting, the mandate from the board has always been, well, whatever the difference is, you're going to absorb in your budget, and I totally expect to do that. Obviously, the second half of this budget year, I don't anticipate, when the salary adjustments come, I don't expect roughly $4,151 divided by 2 is $2,075.50. So I don't expect there to be an extra $2,075.50 in my salary adjustment for this year. I expect my budget target not to include the other for next year. So I realize that we're going to have to take that on, and I'm prepared to. We've had done things in the budget to cut costs, so that's why I'm comfortable with coming forward with this amount. Just the last 2 budget years, our remaining balance has been total between the 2 years of $25,852.44. So over the last 2 years, we were authorized to spend $25,852.44 more than we actually did. And then another thing I'll add in is for our budget targets for the previous 2 budget years, we've come under target by a total of $16,926. So we could have requested over the last 2 years $16,926 more, and we didn't. And a lot of that savings has to do with the management from the person, this chief deputy position. Person takes on a lot of responsibilities. The office, I know out of all the elected officials, I have the least amount of employees that report directly to me, but just keep in mind we are involved with things that touch the entire county. My finance division, payroll division, Oracle division, and then of course, we're the record keeper, so we get plenty of people who communicate with across the county that way. And I have other things, but I don't want to belabor it. I feel it's justified, and I know you guys take, all of us here, we take it very seriously, and I wouldn't be coming forward with you if I didn't think this was deserved. So I can certainly answer any questions you have, but that's all I have right now.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Ash. I think this is a justified request. I'm going to support it. I want to commend you for coming in under budget. It's the exception rather than the rule among our county entities. And hopefully we will work towards a day where that's the rule rather than the exception. But you consistently have done this, and I think that shows good leadership. And the information that you sent out to us, it indicated that the current chief deputy that you have is compensated at significantly less than the chief deputy that you had prior to that. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
And even with this raise, would not be compensated at the same.
Well, and that's compared to what the chief deputy was earning. That When she retired in 2016, she was at $119,600.
Well, I've worked with your office a lot and with Ms. Larson a lot. She does a fine job, and I really commend you for running a tight ship down there. So thank you for this presentation. I'd be happy to support this resolution.
Thank you.
Commissioner Duda?
Thank you. I went to Dan after I saw the information and said, when did we roll back the salary of the chief deputy? And he told me, we did. I mean, he showed me when we did with Kathleen, when we had the turnover. We're not back up any higher than we would have been had you not taken a temporary pay cut for your chief deputy. I mean, this was the will of the office holder with the turnover, a longtime chief deputy turning over to another one, and you wanted to lower it for a while, and now we're bringing it back up. It seems appropriate to me, and so with that, I would make the motion for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Morgan?
Well, I really respect the job you've done under difficult circumstances coming in, and your staff and all the people are very excellent to work with. I have a difficult time with this because of the precedent that it sets, and even what Commissioner Kavanaugh said earlier about the 2.5%, or, agreeing with our speaker earlier, Mr. Kagan. I just feel it's kind of difficult. I know Kathleen Hall was there a long time, and I guess I feel like, maybe it should be done over a period. That's where I'm just having a little bit of a difficult time, because I look at some of the other chief deputies, and I think you told me on the phone that she's been there 8 years. Am I correct on that?
It's about total, probably about 8 years, but not as a chief deputy, just
right.
About a year and a half.
Right. Yeah, she's taken it over. So, it isn't about the person, the job they're doing, for sure, and I want that really clear. It's just about, we have to be so careful about the precedent that we set, and that's why I had a difficult time with our own salaries. Serving in this office is a privilege, and you hate to have us have something that's different, and that's where I am, and I just want to be candid about it and transparent. So, again, I thank you for your service, and, Alan here does a great job for us, too, and, your people are just very helpful always.
Thank you.
And Dan, I just want to echo too, it's nothing personal. I told you right up front that an 8% was not something I could support, especially when we were giving the rest of our employees and unions, we were trying to all stay within that realm. And right now, if you look at all the chief deputies' salaries and what you kind of look at like positions, we're right in line with all of the administrative offices and their chief deputy salaries. So it's nothing personal, and Sherry, nothing personal, but 8% is just too much of a chunk, especially when we have people who, when we were given 2%, 3%, and 4%, people were arguing that was just like outrageous that we would give that to people, and so I can't support the 8%.
I understand. I'll just point out in 2015 there was a chief deputy that got a 14.74% increase. In 2014 there was a chief deputy that got a 17.36% increase. So we've done higher before.
I think we also have to look at positions and what their responsibilities are. So with that, no other questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes. Commissioner Morgan and Morganson voting no. All other commissioners voting yes.
With that, we do have need for executive session for negotiations, litigation, and that's it. Okay. Is there a motion to go into executive session for?
Just wanted to remind people that we're doing an Administrative Services Committee at 1 p.m. at the Douglas County Corrections Center to give a briefing on the implementation of the public safety bond reconstruction of the correction center. Thank you.
Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kraft, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
He wants to stay sitting.
Motion passes, all present voting yes.
too, thanks.
Is it on here for part of the time? Would you like this? Oh, no, thank you for asking. Oh, excuse me.
That's right. Motion to reconvene and adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call. I mean, please vote.
I got you. Nope.
I shouldn't.
Oh, you guys, now I'm very thankful on this Thanksgiving. Motion passes, all commissioners present voting yes. Thanks, PJ.